If you are a parent, then you know that you have spent countless hours just researching and watching your child to see when they're going to do the next thing. When are they going to start crawling? When are they going to be able to start solids and bringing their own hands to their mouth to feed themselves? And when are they going to walk? And all of these really cool milestones happen in a very specific order that you might not realize. But milestones can be controversial because a couple of years ago, the CDC came out and said that crawling was not something that kids need to do. And your pediatrician might be telling you now, no, it's okay if your child doesn't crawl, or it's okay if your child crawls with one foot and one knee, or it's okay if they scoot backwards their whole life, as long as they eventually get to walking, because that is a milestone that matters. And while yes, we all do need to walk, that is one of the foundations of being a human, we do need to do things within our body, within our brain, in a certain order to get to that point. Otherwise, the foundation is not as solid as we might think. So when we are talking about milestones in our office, we often discuss that the order that milestones happen in is crucial. It is so important. But timing is not as important. So if we see a kiddo who's a late crawler, or maybe they're not rolling both sides equally right away, or they are late walking because they're still crawling months later, all of those things, there's some nuances. Every child is a little bit different, but crawling is one of the firm foundations that we really need to develop our bodies and, most importantly, our brains. So when we're talking about milestones, we genuinely think that the brain is built on those motor patterns. So we know that milestones have to happen in a very specific order to allow the right and the left hemisphere of the brain to start communicating and to work together. Each one of those milestones is going to turn on the brain in a very specific way, but it's also going to turn off things like your primitive reflexes, which is a whole can of worms we can get into, but your brain functions on using these motion patterns over and over and over. And crawling is one of the only things that uses that cross-crawl pattern to develop the communication between your right and your left hemispheres of your brain. Well, using both sides of your brain equally allows us to do things like read a book and also understand it, because both of those things happen on opposite sides of the brain. So you might know a child who can read very well, and as soon as you say, oh, what was that book about? They can't tell you. They have no idea. So those different areas of the brain need to communicate. And if our brain does not have a very strong communication between it, or one side is a bit stronger than the other, there can be weaknesses. And so when we see children who are not crawling, we often can kind of look ahead and see that this could follow them for life. They could have areas of their language, areas of learning where they struggle because their brain is not communicating as well as it should. And crawling is one of the only ways to get that to happen. So much so that even if people have strokes or concussions in adult life, sometimes the rehab for that is to crawl as an adult, because it allows your brain to relearn. Your brain is very plastic, is what we refer to it as, and this neuroplasticity of your brain is always allowing it to understand new things, do new things, but we still have to almost coach it to get there, and crawling is one of the ways that we can do that as an adult for rehab. So you can imagine if we're doing that for adults post-concussion, how important that is to get that foundation for children. We really need the brain to do things in a specific order to allow our brain to function and grow as it should. It grows from that brainstem, very primitive when we're babies, all the way into that forward-thinking brain, which we obviously need to be fully functional adults. So when we are talking about missed or delayed milestones, it can be due to stress during the birth process. It could be due to tension in that spine or the fascia within your body, or to those retained primitive reflexes. So those aren't things that kids or babies grow out of. It is just something that they need support with. So at our office, we use something called insight scans, and this is a really great way to see where the body is in terms of inflammation, tension, and almost probably most importantly, the HRV. If our body is in a pattern of fight or flight, or if it's in a really healthy, balanced state where it can do things like running from a bear, but also the resting, digesting, healing, and growing. And so because we use these neurological scans, we can really see almost a window into the brain of what is going on and work on things like the vagus nerve, work on basically that control center that's really going to help us with the entire body, the gut, the brain, the lungs, the heart, the immune system. All of these pieces of our body and immune system kind of lie within that nervous system. And when we can see a picture into what's going on for kids, we know how to address that and how to help as chiropractors. So while we provide adjustments, of course, in this office, we also really provide a lot of teaching moments in terms of what should a healthy child look like? What milestones should we be hitting? If we're not hitting them, what is the next best step? How can we support you? Are there exercises we can do for that? Are there tips or tricks? Or is there someone we can refer you to that might be really great to work in conjunction with us? One of our favorite people is Miss Erin Taylor. She is a pediatric OT, and she actually holds classes within our office weekly, and those are called motor baby classes. So on Fridays, she holds these OT classes in what she calls the Development Academy, and she really works with kids of that 0 to 1 year age range to get those milestones that they need in the order they need them. And the really interesting thing is it's not done based on a children's age, it's done based on their current skill level. So if you have a 10-month-old at home who still isn't crawling, they're going to enter her class as a pre-crawling infant rather than as a 10-month-old who is almost walking. We really, even if a child is so close to walking, we really want to go back and get them that foundation of crawling before they walk. If you're watching this video and your child is not yet crawling, not yet walking, and you're holding a little newborn in your arms watching this, our ideal time for a child to crawl before walking is 4 months old. So if you see someone holding a child's hand and allowing them to walk with their hands up in the air, it might be very, very cute. It is not helping their brain development. A lot of times we see dads, they're very guilty of this, but they hold babies on their lap with babies' legs straight. Babies could be 2, 3, 4 months, and they're standing on dad's lap. It's almost always dad's. Sorry, dads. But that is not a great thing to see. We know that that is only strengthening their desire to be upright. Of course, kids want to be upright. Their goal for year 1 of life is walking, goal for year 2 is talking. So if we're gonna allow a child to be upright and get into that posture, yes, they might be able to do it, but it doesn't mean they should. It's not great for their hips. It's not great for their joints at that age. They developmentally don't have the strength in those joints to be upright, or else they would be on their own. So if you see someone holding a baby upright on their lap, maybe encourage them to not do that. But we know that those things almost then start wiring the brain, that children don't really want to crawl once they've been exposed to being upright like that. You see kids who will pull up really early, they'll walk really early, or if they do crawl, there might be really disorganized movement patterns where they're crawling with one knee, one foot, they're scooting on their butt, they are just rolling to get wherever they need. And you can imagine how the brain is not getting that cross-crawl information, or if it's getting it in a way that is not producing the same result for that foundation of the brain in terms of learning and development and knowledge. So when we see kiddos who are either struggling to crawl the proper way, 2 hands and 2 knees, or they're just skipping crawling altogether, might be showing signs of early walking, those are really kids who we can get in and really see what's going on in their body, really get some OT with Miss Erin into them, and hope that we can really change the trajectory of that brain development, and so that they still have a lot of time to grow and mature the way that their body is intended to. So we've had 10 years of serving kids like this, and it's something we love to do and love to help parents kind of walk alongside them through this journey. So if this sounds like someone you know or your own child, and you're curious about just how your baby can develop in the best way they should, or you have a child at home who is not crawling properly, isn't hitting those milestones on time, or in the right order, I should say, you can book a discovery call, and that's at pinnaclebradenton.com, and we look forward to chatting with you.